Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show, where I interview educators and entrepreneurs on leveling up. Each episode, I zoom in someone who's dope, and we just sit back and have a conversation on what it means to live your best life. Now, if this is your first time checking out the podcast, this is the Mobile University for Entrepreneurs, and I'm your host, Dr. Will. Today's guest is the Latasha James. I love her YouTube channel. Also subscribe to her podcast. And we're going to come on and talk about her entrepreneurial journey and also get her gems about entrepreneurship in general for those of you who are thinking about taking that leap, as well as those educators who you've gotten out there and you're not seeing the traction that you want to see. So for those who be listening on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Simplecast, Stitcher, and Spotify, will you please introduce yourself, Latasha?
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me, Dr. Will. I'm Latasha James, and I am a digital marketer turned online educator and content creator. Like you said, I'm on YouTube and I have a podcast called the Freelance Friday podcast, where I share tips and tricks for entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs every single week.
Awesome. And though I didn't have that on my set of questions, I do want to ask you about that because you're doing a lot of things and then you say, let me do a podcast. And I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
People don't understand, man. It takes a lot to be consistent in terms of putting out your show. So for you to throw that on top of your plate, I just got to find out, like, why would you add that extra layer to what you're doing? Were you going to answer that?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely can. The podcast for me started after the YouTube channel. I'd been doing YouTube videos for a long time. And it was funny because I was getting comments like, I can't wait to get home from work and watch this YouTube video, or I'm listening to this video at work just with my headphones in and like it's in another window, and I'm doing something else. I'm not really watching it. And I was like, wait a second, that sounds like you're using it as a podcast. Why don't I just go ahead and make content specifically for that format? And I was getting a lot of really detailed questions too, where YouTube videos, they're getting longer. I think it's okay to have a 20-30 minute YouTube video, but some of the topics that I was being asked to cover, I could just ramble on about for an hour if I wanted to, or I wanted to have the opportunity to have guests on the show too. And that just isn't quite as interesting of a video when you're just doing like a Zoom call or something necessarily. So yeah, created it for but like to your point of consistency, I think that I already had that workflow down from doing YouTube for so long. So adding it on was just kind of another layer to it. I wasn't completely reinventing the wheel. Podcasts are actually a lot easier to edit than videos. So it didn't add a ton of extra time onto my workload.
Wow. Okay. That's all right. So I'm always curious as to how people got to where they are. What did you think you would be doing when you were growing up, and what actually attracted you to entrepreneurship?
Yeah. You know what? I've always been one of those people who is very multi-passionate. So my family, a lot of them on my mom's side they're artists and musicians. So they were always always doing something creative. So I think that's definitely where I got the creative side of things from. But at the same time, like my grandma and grandpa, they had a seed business. They live up in the country in Michigan, and they would, I don't know, find seeds, I guess, and sell them to like the DNR and things like that. So they had this little side hustle all while doing their normal careers. And so that was very normalized to me. I never thought of it as something unattainable to own some kind of business. So I've always, one of my uncles is an artist and he does a lot of commissions and things like that. And he writes his own books. And so I think that was always just kind of normal to me. It was a normal opportunity or career path for me. It wasn't until I got into college where I actually decided that I wanted to start my own business, or I saw that as some type of a possibility. I actually went to school for film, video, and media studies. And so at the time, I really wanted to work in the news. That was my concentration. I was doing a lot of newsroom stuff, on camera stuff. And I really loved doing that. But I also kind of started to see I graduated college in 2015. 2015. So it was kind of a lot of these online news uh, channels and things like that started to pop up a little bit more around that time, 20, um, I don't know, 2010 to 2015. We're seeing a lot more of that. And I started to see that maybe that was an area that I could lend my voice as opposed to going the more traditional journalism route. And so that's really what encouraged me to start the YouTube channel. And then from there, it just got kind of all happened. I started freelancing from YouTube and just exploring this online content creation world.
So this podcast is dedicated to that educator who is thinking about monetizing their talents, taking what they're doing in the classroom space and creating an education focused business. And when you talk to educators and you're talking about niching down or sort of figuring that thing out, a lot of educators, just I guess like when you were talking to anyone else who has certain strengths, they don't see them where other people see them. It's just like, I do this work every day.
Mhm.
They don't see what's special about it. They just do it. To that, how would an entrepreneur start to sort of discover their secret sauce? Like, what is special about them? What is unique about them? And how do they look at that in terms of a business or a service? And how should they go about sort of drawing from their experiences to figure that out?
Absolutely. Well, one thing that I recommend people do is talk to people in your life, whether that's your peers, your students, your family, your, whoever is close to you, and ask them, like, what are some words that come to mind when you think of me? What do you think some of my strengths are? Because I agree sometimes, number one, we can be very self-critical as humans, and we don't always see what other people see. I remember my mom told me one time that she found me very inspirational. And I was like, and this was when I was an adult, like I was fully grown. And I was like, what? Like, she's like, yeah, you always motivate me to, just do things. And I had never really heard anyone say that. And so yeah, I mean, it's just interesting the things that people who are close to you can pick up on that you don't even recognize as, I would never think that was a strength of mine. But ever since she said that, I'm like, okay, I see that as a strength of mine now. I have the power to motivate people, and how can I use that in my business? So talk to people, and also just pay attention to what you're naturally gravitating to as well.
Mhm.
If as an educator or an instructor, you really like the creative part of it. Maybe you really like to put together videos for your students, or do those fun things. Think about how that can translate over into a career, because I do think if you're going to start a business, it has to be something you enjoy. Doesn't mean that every second of every day is just completely fun for me, but the majority of the time I am really enjoying myself, and I think that's why you start a business and go a different route than just a traditional career path.
Mm. And once they get that, how do they sort of turn that into a business, and how that thing is going to actually look like in a business? Will they, sell videos? Will they sell curriculum? Will they offer coaching? Will they create courses or deliver training, etc.?
Absolutely. So I think it's important to understand the market, number one. So if it is video, let's say, do some Googling, do some research in Facebook groups, or, whatever communities you like to hang out in. Do some research and see what's currently on the market. Online courses, for example, I never knew that was going to be 50% of my revenue, and it is right now. Yeah. I never even knew what an online course was when I first started in this world. And doing research and figuring out how others in my industry were monetizing their strengths, that's kind of what led me down that road. So do market research, see what's out there, and then also what you're good at. So we talked a little bit about what do you like to do, but I think it's also important to balance that with what are you really good at, because I do love creating videos, but I also or have been told by my people who take my courses that I'm good at educating. So how can I combine those two things to make it something that people are actually going to pay for and that is actually going to be sustainable financially?
Mm. And so there's one thing for you to announce yourself as a coach or a social media strategist, and we see that all over the internet right now, right?
Mhm.
How do people position themselves or be able to articulate the transformation, right, that they are going to deliver? Because
Mhm.
anyone can say, hey, take my course and I can get you this many followers, as though one, that many followers are going to translate into a check. But uh, it happens. So how do people sort of, and when you're talking about differentiating yourself from others who are doing what you're doing, is this where social media marketing comes into play?
Yeah. So, as far as the first point, I am a big believer in having beta testers. I
Mm.
still use them even after I've, sold thousands of courses and, proven myself, if you will, by having all of these different students recommend me. I still, when I introduce something new, I pretty much always have at least a couple of beta testers. One, it's great just to look through the material. And, when you stare at something for so long, you miss those mistakes. So it's good to have people who catch those things. But number two, I almost always get really constructive, good feedback, asking for a topic that I didn't even think about covering or something like that. And they also are great because they'll give you reviews, and reviews are really your best salespeople at the end of the day. If you have a good testimonial for something, that's going to really help snowball and encourage other people to purchase as well. So I think having some type of beta test for any new service that you offer is a great idea, just so that you can prove to yourself that you can, do that transformation and you can really do what you say you're going to do. When I first started out coaching, I started doing 1 hour calls. I'm pretty sure they were like $30 or something. I mean, it was like nothing because I wasn't fully sure yet. People were asking for them, but I hadn't proven to myself yet that I was really worth paying for that. So I did a kind of a test run essentially with some test clients, got some really great testimonials, and they told me that they saw the value in it. Um, and then to the second point of your question, as far as differentiating yourself, I think that social media is one way to do that. It's personally one of my favorites. I mean, that's the world that I'm in, but there's so many different avenues as well. Some people have fantastic newsletters. If they really like writing, newsletter marketing, I think is going to be huge for the next couple years. Um, so whatever it is that you can really deliver value, whichever medium that's going to be, maybe, for someone like yourself, it's through a podcast. I mean, there's lots of different ways that you can go, but I do think that you have to have some kind of uh, a signature delivery method that you're getting your message out there and connecting with your audience.
I want to throw this out there because you just mentioned how when you first started, you had these prices that most business strategists, when they are on YouTube or IG and they talk about it, they would never say charge $30 for anything.
Mm-hmm.
When did you know that it was time to raise your rates? And did you have any issues, qualms, doubts about raising them to what you ultimately did, right? Because there are some people who may say, "Ooh, I can't charge $500 for this service. It feels bad."
Yep. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I didn't do $30 calls forever. It was definitely very much like a beta testing thing. Like I said, maybe the first few months or so until I started to get more demand. And I mean, that's at the end of the day, when you realize that you're getting more demand than you can physically satisfy, you probably need to raise your rates or hire someone. You really have two options there. So, yeah, I mean, I think that we all go through a little bit of that sort of imposter syndrome with charging what we're worth. But like I said, if you do get a couple of those good case studies or testimonials, that will really help you just prove to yourself that you can do it and that you are worth it. I mean, I would have clients, I still sometimes have clients who are like, you don't charge very much. Like, you don't charge enough. And I don't know, it kind of makes me feel bad, but it mostly makes me feel good because it shows me that my customers are getting what they paid for, and that makes me feel good. Um, but it is really important to charge what you're worth and do it as soon as you can as well. I was still side hustling, working my old corporate job, and I was charging full rates in my marketing company, because it's just going to make it that much harder to turn around and start asking for those full price rates when you actually need it and it is your full-time business or a big part of your revenue. So yeah, it can be, pricing is always challenging. The last thing I'll say about that too, though, is you mentioned, no strategist would tell you to sell something for $30. I actually have different price products that I offer still. My signature course, my best selling course, we've had thousands and thousands of students, is $55 right now. And people love to say you can't make money off of low ticket, and you absolutely can. It just becomes a volume game then. So, I'm having thousands of students, a lot of students, as opposed to having a cohort of 10 people at a $1,500 or $2,500 price point. But then I also offer, full one-on-one coaching packages that are a higher ticket, low four-figure investment. So I personally enjoy having that opportunity to engage with me. You can because if you're a brand new freelancer, chances are you're not ready to invest $1,500 or $2,000. So meeting you where you're at and saying, okay, well, do you have $55? And those students who take that lower price course often make that full journey and end up being one-on-one coaching clients. Maybe it's not right away, but it might be in a year after they've started making some revenue themselves.
Cool. And I've had business strategists on the show. And of course, I watch YouTube where they talk about that tiered system where, okay, you have this book, that book turns into a course. And then from that course, we have the coaching, and each tier pays a little more. So it's like, I can do this and sort of be away per se, not necessarily the passive income, because nothing is passive if you don't put the work in up front. But it's like, if you want to see more of me, I need more of your cheese,
Yes.
that sort of thing. So how does someone sort of discover which route to take? Will they do a tiered system? Will they just offer sort of those coaching groups, masterminds, or will they live and die by just rolling out so many courses a year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that start with what there is demand for, or you, to the best of your ability, can predict. Again, which is where that market research comes in. If you're seeing that there is a space in your industry for a $1,500 course, and a lot of people are doing it really successfully, that probably means that the market is viable, and it's ready to, you could throw your name into the hat for something like that.
Mm-hmm.
If not, maybe it is just testing a lower price product and seeing where things naturally go. That's how it happened for me. I had that lower price course, and people were sending me emails saying, okay, what's next? Like, I'm ready for something more in depth. I'm ready to talk to you one-on-one. How do I do that? I'll pay, $100, whatever you want. And that's where I decided to kind of formalize it into a longer term coaching package that was a higher investment. So it came from really listening to my students, really, and paying attention to their feedback to see how I could best serve them. Because I didn't know if it would be a group program. A lot of coaches do that, or if it would be a one-on-one program, if it'd be a higher ticket course. But they kind of guided me and let me know what they wanted and needed and were ready to purchase right then and there.
Mm. And so, in addition to, I guess, launching what people would consider sort of that traditional business, people can freelance in terms of working with companies, like, getting gigs through Upwork or Fiverr.
Mm-hmm.
What does that actually look like? And what are some of the benefits and challenges of doing that type of work?
Yeah, so I got my first ever freelancing gig on Upwork. Back in the day, it was called Elance. So it's the same parent company now. And yeah, I mean, I think those sites can be great for establishing yourself, for getting that first batch of kind of portfolio clients, is what I call them. Again, those kind of prove yourself clients, get experience clients, add them to your portfolio type clients. But it's not to say that they're only good for that either, because I still actually have a client on Upwork that we've just been on an Upwork contract for years and never left.
Wow.
Uh, yeah, so I mean, I've had long-term decent paying clients on Upwork as well. So, there are definitely some challenges with it. I think like any freelancing platform or job board, you're going to get bad apples right along with the good ones. So you have to be picky. And this goes for employers too, people who hire on Upwork. Same thing. They're going to get really great freelancers and freelancers who are just mass applying to jobs and, aren't really a great fit. So you really have to filter through. I like using that filter tool on Upwork to actually choose. It's called I think it's skill level. You can choose. Do you want entry level, intermediate, or advanced level jobs? And that's a good way to filter out those $5 an hour projects, that kind of thing, and actually make sure that you're getting decent paying work. And then also just going into it knowing that, like anything, like any career, like any job, you kind of do have to work your way up in those platforms. You have to build up your profile a little bit. So that might mean that you take one gig that is kind of an entry level portfolio project just to get you started and to get that job review. It's called a job success score. Get that 5-star rating, and then it makes you so much more likely to be able to get gigs in the future.
Mm. I used to write for an ed tech company, and then they told us, "Oh, we're going to change how we sort of farm out our freelance writers, and you're going to have to work for this company that will match you with us." And at
Mm.
first, I was like, "Oh, okay," until they gave me the paperwork.
Hmm.
And when I was like, "I'm not filling out a W-2 for you," because to me that defeats the purpose of me doing my entrepreneur work, because the W-2 means taxes, right? What I like is being able to do these jobs where they give me the 1099,
Right.
where I start to get to deduct my stuff,
Right.
right? So
Right.
that's where the gold mine is, not in the W-2s, in the 1099.
Yeah.
So uh, I'm just interested in, I'm going to go ahead and ask you this. How long should someone give themselves to find, to make sure this money is coming in consistently? Like, you don't want to give up too early, right?
Hmm.
But at some point in time, if you're still sort of hitting the pavement, and you are spending this money in terms of whether you're paying a coach for yourself, or you are paying for a course for yourself, or you're doing all of these things, and money going out and money ain't coming in.
Hmm.
At one point in time, does someone need to re-examine what they're doing, and may need to pivot to sort of understand, like, your idea of what you're trying to make, there's no market for it, or understand that maybe entrepreneurship isn't for them?
Hmm. Well, I'll say two things on that. Number one, I would say bootstrap as much as you can. That's what I did. I had a long time where I was working by myself, no contractors, no team, nothing, no coaches, no courses, none of that. Um, and I'm a big believer in education and mentorship and all that, but you also have to know how to make something out of nothing too. I think that's kind of the ultimate test of entrepreneurship. So if you do feel like it's been, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months that you have spent a lot of money and you're not getting any return, cut what you can. Number one, start cutting your spend on it. You can host a website on Squarespace or whatever for $20. That's really all that you need for the most part. And you have some type of online presence, and start from there, and then break that up and say, okay, can I make that $20 back? How can I do that? And then you've at least broken even for the month, and then you can start adding expenses back in. Because I do see a lot of people get kind of trapped in that. They feel like they need, the best equipment and all the I know people who have like 5-10 different coaches and but they haven't made profit yet. So for me, I reevaluate things on a quarterly basis. I go through my numbers. I mean, I obviously look at them throughout the month too, but I really take a look at those strategic goals quarter by quarter, every 3 months. And if I'm consistently underperforming after a couple of quarters, I'm going to start to probably make some kind of pivot and change what I'm offering, or change again what I'm spending.
Mhm. So I want to now talk to you about content creation, because what I love about you and what's interesting about you is in addition to the gems that you do drop, whether it's your video podcast, your show, and you've look, your content comes out. I'm like, what? It's like so often. It's not like, hey, I gotta wait every 2 weeks to get something from you. One, I'm just amazed at that. But there's all sorts of different content you comes out with. Some things are business, very straightforward on this topic, and then you have those day in the life or week in the life,
Mhm.
and you got your glasses on and you're sitting on the couch and you're talking to people and you're doing your travel and all these things. Uh, where I'm just trying to figure out, like, how do you sort of know which content to put out there, and how do you decide which content to actually do? Because there's a difference between, as you know, saying, okay, this is what the freelance market looks like, or this is what you do with social media, versus, hey, follow me, here's my morning routine, and I'm
Mhm.
doing all these things. How do you figure that out? Is there a plan behind everything, or do you sort of look at, oh, this feels good, this feels right, and let me roll with that?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I love video. Video is something I'm very passionate about. So I never wanted my YouTube channel, even though it's a big part of my business, it's the biggest driver of my leads and my business. I still never wanted to lose that love for it. So if I sit in front of a whiteboard all day and just strictly talk business, I'm going to get really bored and I'm going to start to resent it. So I knew that I wanted to keep some type of fun in it and do some content that was really going to be enjoyable for me. Not that the other kind isn't, but it gets old if that's all that I'm doing. So I differentiate my content by what is called discoverable content. So that's, you're probably searching for, I don't know, how to do something, how to schedule an Instagram post or how to build a website or something like that. That's going to be the content that gets people in and encourages them to subscribe. And then the community content is, that type of content that you said, the Week in My Business series, where I'm just building a relationship with my audience. And in my opinion, both are necessary for what I'm trying to do, because you can get so much how-to content out there from anyone online, but there is a particular reason that you chose me, that you feel a connection with me for some reason. And especially if you're going to hire me as your coach, or you're going to trust me to deliver a course to you, you have to have it's deeper than just the content that I'm giving. It's something about the way that I'm delivering it, or you believe in my story somehow, or you're motivated by me, something, more than just what the content is. So you really do have to build up those relationships, and those more vulnerable kind of videos, and those are what really help my audience instill trust in me as well. They really feel like they get to know me, and like I'm talking to them like a person. I'm not talking at them, we're having a conversation. So I try to have a good mix. I mean, I try to keep probably like a 2 to 1 ratio of mostly discoverable content, so I'm really hitting on those trending topics and the educational topics, and then I like to throw in some community content as well. And I'll also say that I look a lot at my analytics. I'm an analytics nerd. So YouTube has fantastic insights. You can get as granular as finding out what people search for and how they land on your channels. So for me, social media manager is the top search term, freelance social media manager, freelancing. So making sure that when I'm creating my video titles and things like that, I'm putting those terms in there and creating content that relates to those topics.
So in that, I want to ask you, if you will, to comment on this whole thing of followers versus invoices, because there are a lot of people who you can look and like, oh, they have all of these followers. But if they even tried to sell a t-shirt, they couldn't get half of their followers to buy that t-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
What goes into turning those followers into customers?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's a great point. I will say a personal example. If I put the word Instagram in any of my content, it goes through the roof. People love Instagram, YouTube content about Instagram. But I actually, again, looking at my analytics, I realized that content is the worst performing besides view count. So it'll get a lot of views, but people stay around for like 1 minute. They drop off really quick. They don't subscribe. They don't buy anything. They don't click any links because they're just kind of looking for those growth hacks. I think it's a lot of young people, to be honest, like very young, teenagers, looking at how to grow their Instagram. So for me personally, I try to avoid Instagram content on YouTube actually, because I find it's not really sustainable for me. When I teach content on social media management, those are people who are invested in their careers. They're trying to better their careers. So, and they're already in a career, meaning that you probably are working and probably maybe have a little bit of disposable income to spend on something. So those are better indicators for me that my content's going to perform well. And then I'll also say, I'm big on email as well. I probably don't do as good of a job as I should always on email, but I do at the very least always collect emails in all of my videos. So I have like an evergreen lead magnet. It's just almost like a mini ebook or a guide that's always linked in my description box. It's linked in my Instagram bio and anywhere that you can find it. So every time I push out new content, there's an opportunity for people to get into my email funnel. And I think once they get there, it's actually a lot easier to sell to people. So you talked about follower count versus invoices. I'm more interested to know what your email list looks like than your follower count, because I think that those folks are a lot more they're in a more likely position to actually purchase something from you. I think people just feel more comfortable buying on email. It's a lot more natural to them than buying from social.
Mm. This has been awesome. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Me too. Thank you.
You're welcome. So before we go, because I'm going to ask you a little something different. Um, what is your call to action for those educators who are sort of at the cusp of taking the leap, but they're unsure,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's the unknown out there, that something is holding them back from fully just going for it. What do you say to them for them to go ahead and take that leap and be okay with it?
Mm-hmm. So I would say create a product. I think digital products are the way of the future. Personally, I think that everybody should at least have one digital product that they're selling, even if it's on the back burner. It's making you a couple $100s a month now. It's going to snowball over time. So create one product and sell it once. Once you get that one first sale, that one bit of proof that you can do it, it is so much easier to scale something that you've done once than kind of be afraid and be sitting in fear about, well, what if? It's so much easier to make something better than to just kind of sit and ideate on something for a long time. So just create something. It's probably not going to be the best ever, when your first attempt. My first course, I look at it now and I'm like, oh my goodness, I had to go back and I updated it. And that's the thing. You can always update these things. You can always improve these things. So just start, and it's going to be so much easier once you do it once.
Thank you, Latasha, for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. That's why she is the Latasha James. So people, you know how I do this. This podcast episode will be on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Simplecast, Stitcher, and Spotify. I need you to subscribe and follow and leave your comments. I like the stars, but can a brother get a review? Because I'm trying to be found and I'm trying to get Oprah on the show. Again, I'd like to thank my guest, Latasha James, for coming on. And in the show notes, there'll be ways to get in contact with her and also ways for you to get those courses. I've been checking them out too. So I'm going to give me some register and I'm trying to learn because I'm trying to get me some more coin because I want my money to be consistent. You know, I'm at a point now where I can have some months and I'm like, and then it's like, and I just need that money coming in every month like that. So I'm definitely going to be getting some of your courses within the next month. And I'd like to thank you people for checking out another episode of the Dr. Will Show. And this will be airing in season 7. I just cannot believe this is season 7. As always, people, invest in you. EDU. Peace.